Hey, don't give me that. You said you wanted to dress up as the Krampus this year. Hey, no. We need a Krampus. You get to be the Krampus. Well, because I have, and besides, I have to talk through this entire episode. Anyway, hello everybody. Happy belated Krampusnacht. Welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and it is the most wonderful time of the year. And not just the weeks leading up to Christmas, no. I mean specifically December 5th. Because December 5th, as I hope we all know, is Krampusnacht.
Oh, Krampusnacht on December 5th. Krampus finds all the bad kids and beats them with their stick. Oh, Krampusnacht, bad kids listen well. He'll put you in a basket, then he'll cart you off to...
I love Krampus. You probably love Krampus. Everyone loves Krampus. And admittedly, I really only jumped on the Krampus bandwagon a few years ago when the movie came out, and then Krampus fever started, and I caught it, and I still have it. But this is the thing. Krampus is just one of many Christmas time monsters. But Krampus is the one who gets all the... I know, right? Krampus is the only one that seems to get any love or attention this time of year. I mean, Krampus has become pretty commercialized. We've got movies. There's there's a Krampus Funko Pop. There are many Krampus Funko Pops. There are many Krampus movies. I personally only have this movie and this Funko Pop, but trust me, there are more options out there. But there are so many other wonderful, weird, terrifying Christmas time monsters that I personally think deserve a moment in the spotlight. So that's what we're doing today. Today we are going to talk about 5 of my favorite Christmas monsters that are not Krampus. Here we go. Alright, first up we are going to be talking about the Greek Christmas goblins, the Kallikantzaroi. Disclaimer, there's a 98% chance I mispronounced their name, there's a 100% chance of me apologizing if that's the case, and there's a 110% chance that I'm going to keep mispronouncing names with the best of intentions as this video goes forward. But before we dive into talking about the Kallikantzaroi, we need to talk about the 12 Days of Christmas. The actual 12 Days of Christmas, not the Christmas Carol with that creepy stalker who's unloading more birds onto that poor woman that she can possibly care for, responsibly at least. But did you realize, because I didn't until I, researched for this video, did you realize that so many Christmas monsters are tied into the 12 Days of Christmas? I'm telling you, it was so hard for me to not just fully fall down this rabbit hole and make the entire video about the 12 Days of Christmas and that span of time, but I'm just going to give a quick overview because this is important context for pretty well all of the Christmas creatures that we're going to be discussing today. So many of the Christmas traditions that we have today are derived and inspired by different cultures and different traditions, many of which are centered around or inspired by the winter solstice. So that magical time of the year where we get the shortest day, the longest night, and the coldest weather. So lots of cultures sort of embraced that time of year because, yes, it was the coldest time of year, but it was also a chance to look at rebirth because we knew that just around the corner the sun was going to come back and then we'd have prosperity again. So many cultures had different ways to celebrate this special time of year, and that actually gave way to Yule and Yuletide celebrations, which then the church saw and said, okay, you can keep doing that, but make it Jesus-centric, and then that's how we ended up getting the 12 Days of Christmas to mark the span between the 25th of December and then the 6th of January, which I believe is called the Epiphany. But anyway, the Greeks also celebrated that special time of year. So that brings us back to the Kallikantzaroi. These are goblins or trolls that live beneath the surface of the earth, and they spent every waking moment for almost the entire year sawing through the trunk of the world tree, which is like the tree that's holding up the earth. So the ultimate goal, their ultimate goal, is saw through the tree, allow the tree trunk to collapse, thus allowing the earth and the world to collapse on itself. They're basically trying to bring about, I'm assuming, doomsday or the end of the world. But here's the thing. When we get to that magical winter solstice period, the 12 Days of Christmas period, that is when the sun is on vacation. It's on pause. So that actually allows these goblins to come up to the Earth's surface to wreak havoc because they hate sunlight, they don't like warmth. They're kind of like me in that way, actually. So because the sun is not really a threat to them, they're able to come up onto the surface, and like I said, they wreak all kinds of havoc, and the mortals have to fend for themselves. And they came up with a few different ways and a few means to fend off these horrible holiday time goblins. Not just the in-laws, am I right? I don't normally do jokes like that. Was it funny? Okay. So one of the methods that they used to try to keep these goblins at bay was that they would put colanders out, like, on their doorstep. Because there's this whole thing where the Kallikantzaroi, they can't acknowledge or count to the number 3 because it's considered a sacred or a holy number. So they get distracted by the colander and they'd be like, I gotta count how many holes are in this thing. But they can't count past 2. So they would spend all night just being like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Because if they say or acknowledge number 3, they burn up and die. So that would keep them occupied. Another thing that they could do to protect the house was burn a log in the fireplace to make sure that the goblins didn't come down the chimney like Santa Claus. And this is kind of a parallel to the classic Yule log tradition of having a log burning. Because, well, in this specific case with the Kallikantzaroi, it's because they don't like light, they don't like heat, so it keeps them away. Anyway, they're around for just about 12 days, equivalent to the 12 days of Christmas. December 6th is when they go back underground. However, in the amount of time that they've been gone, it's been enough for the world tree to regenerate itself and reinforce itself, and then they go right back to work, sawing the tree, hoping that maybe this year they'll succeed in cutting it in half. Spoiler alert, it hasn't happened yet. Our next Christmas creature to be featured is an undead horse that goes trick-or-treating at the holiday season all the way from Wales. Please give a warm welcome to the Merry Lwyd. So for a little bit of context here, there is a poem called The Ballad of the Merry Lwyd, and it has this very, I think, important piece of information that we'll circle back to, that says, at this time of year, the dead are able to come back and visit, but the living, they don't want any part of it. The living are afraid of the dead. So what are the living going to do? They're going to shut themselves up in the safety of their home, where they are warm, where they have fire, where they have protection, and they are not going to extend any of that to the dead who are outside. All right, just keep that in mind. That'll come back. That's important. The actual tradition of the Merry Lwyd, it sounds like so much fun. And I kind of wish we had it here in Canada or in North America at all. So what you do with the Merry Lwyd is, the Merry Lwyd is a horse skull that somebody wears. It's a blinged out horse skull. It's beautiful. So they wear the horse skull and then they have a sheet wrapped around them essentially. So that is our Merry Lwyd. The Merry Lwyd has an entourage that travels with her, and then they go door to door. Every time they go to a house, they knock on the door, then the Merry Lwyd sings in Welsh, essentially saying, please let me into your house. And then the person inside the house has to respond, as per the tradition, to give some kind of reason as to why they can't let the Merry Lwyd into their house. However, they also have to do it in song. And then this just starts this back and forth, basically a rap battle. People now like to compare it to a rap battle, where the horse is saying, this is why you gotta let me in the house. The homeowner is saying, this is why I can't let you in my house. And they usually pepper in pretty brutal insults in this back and forth. And it keeps going until the homeowner has absolutely no reason left to deny entry to the undead horse, at which point the undead horse and her entourage get to go into the house and drink all the beer they can find, all the alcohol, eat all the food. It's a wild party. However, this whole act of going door to door and asking for people to share in their food, money, and alcohol is not exclusive to people who are wearing horse skulls. This actually dates back to almost ancient tradition known as Wassailing. Maybe I'm using ancient a little too liberally, but at the very least, it dates back to the Middle Ages. Back in the Middle Ages, you had the feudal lords and then you had the peasants. The peasants around the holiday time would go to the feudal lords and they would essentially sing, and the whole idea was, in exchange for us singing, will you please share some of your food, your money, and your alcohol? And then the feudal lords had no problem. They were like, it's the time of giving as an act of charity. Look at how generous I am. So that was known as wassailing. Specifically because wassailing, it was the act of asking people to share their wassail. I think wassail is some kind of delicious, hot, alcoholic beverage akin to mulled wine. So yeah, just imagine you're going door to door to the rich people saying, hey, please share your wassail with me, give me some mulled wine. It's not begging because I'm going to give you a song in exchange for it. Over the years, the decades, and the centuries, this kind of evolved into, well, like I said, the act of wassailing. And so then the poorer people would go to the richer people and ask them to share. However, it wasn't always fun in games, because when it moved into sort of a class-based thing, sometimes the rich folks didn't want to share. And if the wassailers weren't given what they were there for, like if they weren't given a little bit of food, drink, or money, that's when things could get a little sketchy. Sometimes they were known to get a little rowdy. Sometimes they were known to get a little violent. Sometimes they would outright vandalize the homes of the people who didn't participate in the wassailing. In fact, all of this is perfectly encompassed in that Christmas carol. Give us some figgy pudding. No, give us some figgy pudding. Give us some figgy pudding. And give us good cheer. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. Get it? Get it? They're asking the rich people for figgy pudding, and they're like, this isn't an option. You're going to give it to me, and I'm not going to leave until you do. So anyway, somewhere along the line, the tradition of wassailing evolved and incorporated an undead horse that we all know and love as the Merry Lwyd. And when you look at that tradition of wassailing up against the mythology of the dead coming to visit the living and the living shunning them, I think the message overall is pretty clear. Sharing is caring. Next up on our list, we have Perchta, the Christmas witch. Not to be confused with La Befana, the Italian Christmas witch. Perchta, the Christmas witch. Alright, this is what I love about Perchta, the Christmas witch. This is somebody who is all about duality. This is somebody who is efficient and gets the job done. You know how Santa Claus is there to reward the good children, and then Krampus is there to punish the bad children? Perchta does it all. You know? To the good kids, she's seen as this beautiful, comforting goddess figure dressed all in white. To the bad kids, she is an evil, terrifying, old witch lady. And this whole duality thing, like, it's fascinating. When you look at the history of Perchta, originally, it seems like she started her life as Berchta, who I believe was the Germanic goddess of prosperity. So Berchta was a big deal. Berchta was this goddess who looked out for women, who looked out for children. One of the main things that she did was, like, she would be dressed all in white, very calming, very ethereal, and then she would escort deceased children calmly and gingerly into the afterlife. Everybody loved Berchta. So much so that there was literally a cult of Berchta. The only people that didn't love her were the church. The church, in fact, so much did not love her that they went out on an active smear campaign. The gist of which was, oh, this lady that you think dresses all in white and escorts the souls of children into the afterlife, no, you're all wrong. There's nothing prosperous or abundant or good about her. She is a witch. And suddenly, Berchta was no longer escorting the souls of deceased children into the afterlife. She was specifically taking the souls of unbaptized children to hell. She was also assigned as the leader of the Wild Hunt, basically leading a parade of, well, they look like Krampuses. It's not accurate to say that she was leading a parade of Krampuses. She was leading a parade of Perchen, which are creatures that look virtually, as I understand it, indistinguishable from Krampuses. And her name was then changed from Berchta to Perchta because she was leading the Perchen. So I think that's kind of historically how we had two sides of this figure. On the one hand, you have this figure who's an ethereal goddess whose name literally means light. On the other hand, you have the church's version of her, which is an evil witch that just takes everybody to hell with a bunch of Krampuses. Sorry, with a bunch of Perchen. Take all of those ingredients, cram them into one figure, and then suddenly that is how you get Perchta, the Christmas witch. The ultimate goddess of holiday duality, doling out punishments and rewards all at once. So traditionally, Perchta would show up during the 12 days of Christmas. During that time, she would roam around, and if children were good, she would leave them a silver coin to find. For the bad kids, she had a special knife that she kept hidden beneath her robes, and then she would use it to disembowel them and replace their organs with straw and stones, and then she'd sew them back up, hoping they learned their lesson. And that is what earned her the name, the Belly Splitter. I am actually shocked that nobody has taken her and used her as inspiration for a Christmas slasher movie. The idea's on the table for anyone braver than I who wants to attempt it. Next. For our next Christmas creatures, we are venturing to Iceland to talk about the Yule Lads. The Yule Lads are so much fun. With the Yule Lads, you get a little bit of Santa Claus mixed in with a little bit of the Kallikantzaroi. So the Yule Lads are the 13 sons of Grilla. So Grilla is this giantress. She's like a giant troll, goblin, monster lady who lives up in the mountains. The first recorded mention of Grilla talks about how she came down from the mountains, she went into the towns, and she would go door to door asking the parents to give her their misbehaving children so that she could eat them. It's actually kind of like she was wassailing. And so then to like fend her off, the parents would either have to give her food or just like chase her, scare her away. And Grilla's sons, the Yule lads, were just as, if not in some ways more terrifying than their mom. Like I say more terrifying because there was a period of time where telling stories about the Yule lads seemingly became a little bit of a competitive sport. Like people would see who could tell the most gory, gruesome, terrifying stories about the Yule lads, and it worked. It worked so well that kids were terrified to go out. They wouldn't leave the house because they believed that the Yule lads were gonna slaughter them. It got so bad that the Icelandic government actually had to pass a law making it illegal for people to scare their kids with stories about the Yule lads. So at that point, the mythology of the Yule lads was consciously retconned and they turned into 13 little Santa Clauses. So in the revised tradition, every day from December 12th through to December 25th, one of the Yule lads would come down from the mountain and enter the town. When they came into the town, they would go house to house, and the children of that house would leave out a shoe. If the kids had been good, then the Yule lad would leave them a present, probably candy, in the shoe. If the kids had been bad, they would leave them a rotted potato. Each Yule lad would be in town for 13 days, so that meant that the first Yule lad who came down on the 12th would leave on the 25th. The Yule lad who showed up on the 13th would leave on the 26th, etc., etc. And during their tenure in town, they would be up to their usual antics. And each Yule lad had their own unique brand of mischief that they liked to get up to.
Roll call!
Sheepcoat Claude, the sheep harasser. Bah! Gullygawk, the milk stealer. Stubby, the frying pan food stealer. Spoon licker, the spoon licker. Pot scraper, the leftover food stealer. Bowl licker, the midnight snack stealer. Door slammer, the slammer of doors. Sire gobbler, the yogurt eater. Sausage swiper, the window peeper, he's a peeping Tom. Doorway sniffer, the baked goods stealer. Meat hook, the leftover meat stealer. And number 13, candle beggar, the candle stealer. Historical context, candles used to be worth a lot of money. So, during those chaotic days when the Yule lads were in town, anytime you felt like a spoon had been licked, a door had been slammed, a sheep had been defiled, you could blame the Yule lads. But the Yule lad family does not stop with their giant mother and the lads themselves because they also have a pet. Which brings us to my number one favorite Christmas creature, the Yule cat.
The Yule cat. A fashionista from Iceland who eats the poor. Ow, meow.
The Yule lads have a pet cat, and it's a giant, evil cat, and I love it so much. Oh, and it's so simple. The Yule cat is such a simple feline with one goal in mind. Eat the unfashionable. The whole idea with the Yule cat is like, the Yule lads, it's complicated. They come down one at a time, 13 days at a time. It spans, like their presence spans from December 12th through to probably January 6th or 7th. The Yule cat, one night, one visit. The Yule cat comes down into town on Christmas Eve with the goal of eating anybody, specifically kids, with the goal of eating kids who did not get new clothes for Christmas. Now, this kind of goes, I guess, hand in hand with trying to scare kids into doing their chores, because there was this whole thing about how when kids did their chores, then they were gifted new clothes. It could have also been kind of a motivator for people to get their sewing done in a timely fashion so that they could gift their family members clothing. I mean, I didn't dig too deep into the historical context of it. All you need to know is that there is a giant cat in Iceland who does inventory of all your Christmas presents, and if there is not a single article of clothing, you get eaten by the cat. All I have to say to that is, Meowie Christmas. And with that, friends, this concludes yet another holiday episode of Teacup for One. Let me know in the comment section down below which of these Christmas creatures is your favorite. Or do you have a favorite Christmas creature that did not make the list? Let me know. And if you want to be the first to know when I release more videos about the holidays or about Disney, Shakespeare, movies, sometimes cats, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. If you haven't subscribed already, it is so easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup for One. Meow.